Hello. Welcome to the Human Rights Campaign Foundation's Inclusive Blood Drive Festival and Speakers Forum. We're here in large part thanks to the enormous generosity of the City of West Hollywood, as well as our corporate sponsors and community partners. And we're honored to have you all here joining us for this special event. We have a full day planned for you, and we'd like to begin with a special performance from a group that for decades has brought its unique brand of music, humor, community service, and activism, not only to our community, but to the world. Please welcome the Gay Men's Chorus of Los Angeles and its artistic director, Dr. Joe Netto.
My eyes are wide open, recognizing change. It feeds the fires of the fear where human love seems strange. I'm gonna rise above. I believe that love is love. I'm gonna raise my hands with every woman, child, and man. I'm gonna start an uprising. I'm gonna start an uprising of love. I'm gonna start an uprising of love. There's no need for hiding, and there's no need for shame. Come into the sun, tell everyone love has a face, it has a name. I'm gonna rise above. I believe that love is love. I'm gonna raise my hands with every woman, child, and man. I'm gonna start an uprising. I'm gonna start an uprising of love. I'm gonna start an uprising
Once again, I'd like to welcome you to HRC Foundation's Inclusive Blood Drive, Festival, and Speakers Forum. My name is Rich Meyers. I'm on the Human Rights Campaign's Los Angeles Steering Committee, and I'm also an incoming member of HRC's Board of Governors. I'm not just here because of my involvement with HRC. I'm here because my husband and I have a son. And when he was 9 years old, he came home from school one day and he said, "Guys, my school's having a blood drive. And if you guys donate blood, they'll give us 4 tickets to Legoland." And suddenly we found ourselves in a very unexpected conversation. We had to explain to him about blood donation, about HIV and AIDS, and about an outdated Food and Drug Administration policy that bans gay and bisexual men from donating blood, and about why we wouldn't be going to Legoland. That's how I became involved, and that's how I became passionate about overturning the FDA ban, a ban that's been in place since 1983, a ban that says that if you're a man who has had sex with another man even one time since 1977, you are permanently barred from donating blood, banned for life. Back in 1983, when less was known about how HIV was transmitted and about how to test for it, the FDA ban helped to maintain the integrity of the blood supply to some degree. But today we recognize that HIV transmission is not limited to gay and bisexual men alone. We recognize that our modern testing techniques reveal the presence of HIV in the bloodstream within 11 days from the date of transmission. We know that every unit of blood is tested, regardless of how a potential donor answers questions during the pre-screening process. Back in 1983, but the question is, don't gay and bisexual men still contract HIV at a higher rate than the overall population? And the answer is yes. And this has long been the rationale for the FDA ban. While it's easy to potentially rely on this statistic, it's not the fact that men are gay or bisexual that puts them at higher risk. It's one's behavior that puts one at risk. And that relationship between behavior and risk applies regardless of one's sexual orientation. Straight, gay, or bisexual, if you engage in risky sexual behavior, you're at risk. Sexual orientation is irrelevant. By asking the right questions about sexual behavior instead of sexual orientation, we have the chance to not only expand the eligibility of certain donors, but also to possibly make the blood supply even safer than it is today. Today, the Human Rights Campaign Foundation is proud to offer to West Hollywood and to the greater Los Angeles area our inclusive blood drive event. Eligible blood donors have the opportunity to donate blood on behalf of someone who can't donate for themselves. There is a constant shortage of blood in the United States, and each donated pint of blood can save up to 3 lives. Gay and bisexual men know this, and they want to help. We've come out here today with eligible donors despite the fact that we've been historically excluded. Our desire to help transcends our ineligibility. So we encourage all eligible donors to please stop by the West Hollywood Auditorium down here in the park to donate blood today. Today you'll also have the opportunity to hear from leading experts on the status of the FDA ban, people who are advocating on the political side, people who are researching, people who are in the position to help affect change. Today you'll also have the opportunity to sign a petition to the FDA and the Department of Health and Human Services, encouraging them to move from a ban based on sexual orientation to a policy based on risky sexual behavior. It also calls for equitable, evidence-based screening guidelines for donations from transgender individuals so that they are not refused solely on the basis of their gender identity. If you're interested in signing our petition, please visit the HRC booth behind you today following today's speaking program. Today, you can also visit our generous corporate sponsors and community partners at their tents. Learn more about what each of them is doing for the LGBT community. And as you do, stop again at the HRC booth, where you can meet Prop 8 plaintiffs Paul Katami and Jeff Cirillo later on, husbands who have done so much to push forward our modern movement toward LGBT equality. Also at the HRC booth, you can pick up a copy of a brand new statement from the American Medical Association, one which they issued specifically for this event. In it, you'll see how the AMA strongly supports the FDA's ending the FDA's lifetime deferral, both on scientific and on ethical grounds. You'll see that on the scientific side, it states that when donated blood can be tested directly, each infected donor poses the same detectable risk. And it calls for donor screening questions based on risk behavior instead of sexual orientation. On the ethical side, it talks about how current questions reinforce negative stereotypes and stigma. It points out that the current policy sends a demeaning message that all gay and bisexual men should be treated as if they have HIV, that it doesn't meet the condition of treating like risks alike, and that it fails to recognize significant advances in the treatment for HIV. Before we introduce our first speaker, we'd like to say thank you to our corporate sponsors, including CBS Corporation, our hotel sponsor, Sofitel Hotel Los Angeles at Beverly Hills, our water sponsor, Aqua Hydrate, Town and Country Event Rentals, our t-shirt sponsor, Capital Drugs, Power Zone, Pacific Oaks Medical Group, Sheila G's Brownie Brittle, which we all love, Pasta Chips, and Just Chill Beverages. We'd also like to thank our community partners, including the City of West Hollywood, the Los Angeles LGBT Center, the Trevor Project, Lambda Legal, AIDS Project Los Angeles, the Gay Men's Chorus of Los Angeles, Vox Femina Los Angeles, Band for Life, Love, Don't Hate, the Pop Luck Club, and Valley Community Healthcare. Thank you. We're very happy to have you all here with us today. And now I'd like to introduce our first speaker. He studied communications and public policy as an undergraduate at UCLA and UC Berkeley, and earned his Juris Doctorate from Loyola School of Law. He practiced family law for over 30 years and worked extensively in nonprofit and public service, including volunteer work for the American Red Cross. He has served as Santa Monica's mayor 3 times, as mayor pro tem twice, and is now a California State Assemblymember. Please welcome California State Assemblymember Richard Bloom.
Thank you, Rich. Thanks for kicking us off this morning. But, you know, I never mind being upstaged by the Gay Men's Chorus of Los Angeles. Can we give them another hand? And my assembly district stretches from Malibu out to Hollywood, and I'd be willing to bet that most of the folks in the chorus live in my assembly district. So I'm just suggesting, think about it. Maybe we change it to Gay Men's Chorus of the 50th Assembly District, if you're okay with that. I'd be okay with it. But it is a great pleasure for me to be here this morning to talk a little bit about this very, very important subject. And I'm very, very proud to be this morning joining forces with the Human Rights Campaign, the City of West Hollywood, the American Red Cross that's down in the street there. Actually, where is the blood donation? Everybody should know where to go for that. Okay, right around the corner in the auditorium. It is important that we change this discriminatory policy so that it becomes one that's based on science and not based on fear. It was my dad who taught me the value of giving blood. He was a regular blood donor, and when I think it's 18 years old, maybe 16 years old, when you can start giving blood. When I got to that age, I was right there giving blood as often as possible, and I've continued to do it to this day. Not everybody can give blood for some perfectly legitimate reasons. There are weight requirements. There are reasons that legitimately restrict who can give blood, and we are chronically faced with blood shortages. Every year the call goes out. There's been a hurricane. There's been a disaster somewhere. We need blood. There's a chronic shortage, and people are asked to line up. So in the face of chronic shortages, why do we have rules that have no basis in science that in a discriminatory fashion restrict the supply of blood? It just doesn't make any sense. And I have to tell you, it's not just us who believe in that this policy is necessary. It is the American Red Cross, America's blood banks. I'm very, very happy to hear that the AMA has further underscored its commitment on this issue. And if you think about it, these are not, I mean, look, I was the mayor of Santa Monica, and I represent this great district that West Hollywood is one of the crown jewels of. We're known for being, on the progressive side of things, for being liberals, and I'm very proud of that. But these organizations, the AMA, the American Red Cross, I sat on the board of the American Red Cross of Santa Monica. I was an executive committee member. These are not exactly liberals who tend to be in these organizations. They're not, I don't want to insult anybody here. There are lefties and folks like us who serve, but the American Red Cross in particular is known to be a conservative, relatively conservative organization. But what they're really conservative about is their opinions. They don't issue opinions about the safety, particularly the American Red Cross, to issue an opinion about the blood supply that might lead to a lack of safety. They're not about to do that. Their credibility would be on the line. So when they come out in support of a change of this policy, you can count on it as being something that we ought to be doing. So what the heck's going on at the FDA? What the heck is going on at the FDA? We need to raise our voices loud and clear to make certain that this change in policy takes place. And I'm very proud to tell you that legislation that I sponsored, Assembly Joint Resolution 50, in the last session of the Assembly, that calls on the FDA to take another look at this policy and modify it, sailed through the Assembly, sailed through the Senate, and was recently signed by Governor Jerry Brown. Yeah. The second most populous state, the 8th largest economy in the world, one of the most progressive states in the country, a state that people look to for leadership, has now spoken out on this issue. And each of you, thank you for being here, for you speaking out. We need to raise our voices on this issue. Thank you for your commitment. Keep up the good work.
Thank you, Richard Bloom. Our next speaker has been an elected member of the West Hollywood City Council since 2001. He is one of the first HIV-positive gay elected officials in the United States, and he has initiated and co-sponsored numerous pieces of legislation that hold true to the city's innovative identity and establish a model for other progressive communities. In 2010, his support helped to unanimously pass two separate City Council resolutions supporting FDA reconsideration of its ban against gay and bisexual men donating blood. Please welcome West Hollywood City Council member John Duran.
Thank you, Rich. I think the best way to get an American woman or an American man to do something is to tell them that they can't. The first time you tell somebody in this country that you cannot get married, you cannot give blood, you cannot be openly gay or lesbian, when you tell us that, it inspires the sort of passion we're seeing in Rich Meyers. And I want to thank Rich for helping organize this continuing drive for justice. Back in 1980, I was a volunteer at the Orange County Gay and Lesbian Center with the late Niles Merton, one of the many leaders that we lost through the Great Plague that affected us all. And back then, the center consisted of a room with 3 hotlines, 3 phones. Not much more, a staff of 2 people. It was the early days of LGBT history. And we started to see these young men come into the center, Kaposi's sarcoma, pneumocystis, toxoplasmosis, diseases that we'd never even heard of, and it made no sense that these young men back in the early 80s were coming in with this. But shortly after that, we noticed that there were Asian Americans and others who did not identify as gay, Asians, Latinos, Africans Americans, whites, who were coming to the center because they were showing up with the same symptoms. And the only thing they had in common is that they had been heroin users. And so early on, we said to ourselves, well, they're not gay, but they're heroin users or former heroin users. What's the connection? And we quickly realized that it was the administration of heroin through hypodermic needles that was the causative force for the new infections in these heterosexual people who were coming down with these same strange illnesses that did not yet have a name. Niles and I went to alert the blood banks that we thought, along with a lot of other people at centers around this state, that there was something going on that involved blood. And the response back then was, if you repeat this, we will sue you for defamation. That was the initial response to our call, our clarion call that something was happening in the blood. Shortly thereafter, in 1983, the FDA established this policy. Gays could not give blood, completely ignoring the science that we had back then that it was greater or going to be greater than just gay people. And the cost of that ill-fated policy was the loss of so many hemophiliacs during the early days of the epidemic, and so many other people who got bad blood transfusions. That was the result of this policy that was based on irrational fear rather than on science. I don't know why I'm still here, although all the odds say I should have passed along with my brothers that we lost through the Great Plague. But I guess one of the reasons I'm still here is to be able to recall these stories of the most trying time, I think, in the last century of American history, when as a nation we had to confront plague in our midst. The founders of our country, the women and men who founded this United States of America, were people of the Enlightenment. They believed in reason. They were deists. They believed in rational thought. They believed in establishing policy not based on the fears of old Europe or the fears of old religion, but on science. Science was at the core and center of this new nation's founding. This policy is contrary to all the values that we have and hold dear as American people. To have a policy based on fear from 30 years ago rather than on the science that exists today. So come on, President Obama. Come on, Congress. Catch up with your people once again who are taking the lead to remove something that makes absolutely no sense and offers false assurance to people. It's time to end this ban, this part of our American history, this policy that was rooted in great fear and unreason, and to bring us into the modern day. I know that I won't be able to give blood today, but I know many of my friends, gay men included, who are HIV negative, gay or straight, have the ability and should have the ability to give blood to a nation that has a severe shortage of blood all year round. Let's do this. I have to find at least one lesbian in the crowd or one straight dude who will give blood for me today. There's one right there. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thanks for inviting me to be here with you.
Our next speaker has served the constituents of the Los Angeles 13th Council District for more than a decade. Passionate about making our neighborhoods even safer and improving our quality of life, He's focused on creating opportunities for more affordable housing, reforming city policy to help drive the local economy, and collaborating with the entertainment industry to find creative solutions to bring more jobs back to Hollywood. He's also the first openly gay person to be elected to the 13th Council District seat. Here, with a special announcement of his own, is Los Angeles City Council member Mitch O'Farrell.
Thank you, Rich. Thank you so much. Thank you, HRC. Thank you, City of West Hollywood. Thank you, Los Angeles LGBT Center. And I also want to give a special shout out and thank you to Richard Bloom for sponsoring this legislation and seeing it through for the state of California. Thank you, Richard. Since the 9/11 Memorial Blood Drive that my office sponsors, we began last year, my first year in office. We've been involved in quarterly blood drives at Los Angeles City Hall. Seeing people from most walks of life come together to donate for the good of others has been rewarding, but I am mindful of a very sobering reality. Since 1983, the FDA has prohibited men who have had sex with other men from donating blood due to fears of transmitting HIV through those donations. I, too, came of age during the beginning of the AIDS crises in the 1980s. They were terrifying times. People of all ages, hemophiliacs, people who had blood transfusions, were dying from receiving blood that was infected. There was no way of testing blood in those early years for the presence of HIV. But here we are, 30 plus years later. We live in a different time now, a time where education, medical science, technology have allowed us to better understand and prevent the spread of HIV. There is absolutely no justification whatsoever for a lifetime ban in this day and age because of what we now know. Its continued existence only serves to discriminate and propagate a stigma associated with the MSM community and carry it further to new generations, and that is criminal. On September 9th, just a couple of weeks ago, my wonderful colleague Mike Bonin and I sponsored a resolution which will affirm the City of Los Angeles' support of legislation and administrative action that will seek to repeal the FDA's policy of prohibiting this community from donating blood. Today, I am calling, along with everyone here today, on everyone to join us, the city, the American Medical Association, the American Red Cross, the American Association for Blood Banks, and America's Blood Centers in urging the federal government to end this unfair and obsolete policy. This is a new era that calls for a medically sound, enlightened policy that does not discriminate while helping people in need. Thank you so much for all of your advocacy, and I also want to thank my team, many of which are here today with me, who are helping in this effort as we spearhead it on the whole Los Angeles City Council, and I know that you all will be standing with us as we move forward. So thank you so much, and may God bless. Thank you.
For those of you who are not yet familiar with them, the Williams Institute is a national think tank at UCLA School of Law. It's dedicated to conducting rigorous, independent research on sexual orientation and gender identity law and public policy. In 2010, it published a compelling report entitled Effects of Lifting Blood Donation Bans on Men Who Have Sex with Men. Here to discuss that report and its most recent updates is the Williams Institute's inaugural Brian Belt HIV Law and Policy Fellow, Ayako Miyashita.
Thank you so much for having me today. I'm a little bit shorter than the rest of you all, so I'm going to bend this down a little bit. I'm really excited to be here today. We actually just updated our report as of yesterday. So you will find online available, as well as a few paper copies today of our update on the effects of lifting blood donation bans on men who have sex with men. What you'll find in the report, I think, is very compelling. The update provides figures based on population-based data sources, estimates of the size of the MSM population in the United States, and estimates of blood donation patterns in the U.S. to predict what the impact of lifting the blood ban would be on the nation's blood supply. Our results indicate and suggest that lifting the ban could increase the total annual blood supply by 2 to 4%. For those of you that are not too comfortable with numbers, what does that really mean? By lifting the blood donation ban entirely, that means that there would be likely an additional 360,600 people to donate blood. Even if the blood donation ban were to be modified to a 12-month deferral rather than an indefinite deferral, there would be an additional 185,800 people that might donate. And if we shifted it to a 5-year deferral, that would still yield an additional 172,000 people that could donate blood. Based on the American Red Cross's figure that each blood donation has the opportunity and the potential to be used in life-saving procedures for 3 individuals, our figures indicate that a complete lifting of the ban could help save the lives of 1.8 million people. That's a lot of people. So I hope that you find this information useful as you move forward and think about this policy. And just to put it into a little bit of context, we've seen changes in this policy internationally. Not sure how many of you have been paying attention to this, but in the United Kingdom, the policy was shifted in 2011 to a 12-month deferral. And in Canada, the deferral was shifted to a 5-year deferral. So that was in 2013. These are a few changes in the international scene that I think indicate that there is a possibility for change. The research indicates that you can't really compare the situation in the United Kingdom or in Canada with the situation here in the United States. But I think that overall, it does provide us with a context for looking at and understanding better what modification of an FDA policy would look like. So thank you again. I encourage you to take a look at the updated figures, and I have some paper copies available for those that are interested.
Our final speaker today is HIV Project Director and a Senior Attorney at Lambda Legal, the national organization committed to achieving full recognition of the civil rights of LGBT people and people living with HIV. He has successfully litigated multiple cases involving the discriminatory treatment of people living with HIV. He assisted in dismantling the HIV travel ban and is working nationwide on the reform of laws criminalizing conduct based on HIV status. He was, and this is amazing, he was also recently appointed to the Presidential Advisory Council on HIV and AIDS. This means that he'll be providing advice, information, and recommendations to the Secretary of Health and Human Services, which is the department that oversees the FDA. We're very pleased and honored to welcome Schoettes.
Thank you so much, Rich. It is great to be here, and I'm really honored that that you brought me in to be a part of this, and I want to thank all the other members of the panel up here who are doing work to get rid of this discriminatory policy. So indeed, I am the HIV Project Director at Lambda Legal, and I'm here to tell you that Lambda Legal has been in this fight for a really long time. Since long before I became the HIV Project Director, since before I came to Lambda Legal, and probably actually since before I think I came out as a gay man, which happened about 2.5 decades ago. So it's been a little while that Lambda Legal has been fighting against this policy and seeking its reform with the FDA. And I can tell you that Lambda Legal is not going to be satisfied with just any change in the policy. We want to see a change in the policy that no longer discriminates against gay men or transgender people, or any group for that matter, based simply on who we are, who we form intimate relationships with, or who we have sex with, because I think we know that those two things aren't always the same. We are no longer going to be satisfied with the change that might have been acceptable 25 years ago, or 15 years ago, or a decade ago. We must demand a change in the policy that reflects the current scientific understanding of HIV transmission risks, the current sensitivity of the testing technologies, and one that does not promote unwarranted fears around HIV, the people living with HIV, or the communities affected by HIV. That is what we need to see. You know, Rich was talking about my new position on the President's Advisory Council on HIV/AIDS, and I truly hope that from that position I'm able to have a bit more influence and a bit more of a voice in this discussion and what's taking place within that agency of the government. But the folks at the FDA keep talking about how they need more information and to conduct more studies before they can change the policy. But my question for them is, what more do you need to know? We have known for decades how HIV is and is not transmitted. We have known for decades what steps and what precautions can be taken to reduce dramatically the risk of HIV transmissions. In fact, we have a lot more information than when this discriminatory policy was first put in place. So why should we wait any longer to change the policy to one that reflects everything we currently know? You know, one of the studies that is currently being conducted that the Blood Safety Committee has indicated they're waiting for the results from before acting, it is designed to assess whether the small group of gay men who are currently donating in violation of the ban, a civil disobedience strategy that I absolutely do not recommend. It seeks to understand whether they would comply with the policy if it was changed so that it only prevented men who have had sex with men in the past 5 years or the past year from donating blood. To which Lambda Legal said in a recent letter to the administration, here's a better idea. Rather than base policy on whether this group of individuals will modify their behavior under a policy that discriminates in a slightly different way, how about if we change the policy to a non-discriminatory one and then see how gay men react to that? I think that is a policy that gay men will be able to get behind. So what does that change look like? And Rich said to me a couple minutes before I came up here that I'm the subject matter expert on the panel when it comes to the donation ban, which scares me, I have to say, quite a bit. Because I sometimes tell people I'm not a doctor, but I play one in court. I'm an attorney, so I don't know that much about this scientific stuff, but I can read up about it, and I can read enough to understand it, just like all of us, and everyone up here can. And so I'll just say that, first I want to be clear that I do not believe, I think it is highly unlikely that the FDA is just going to get rid of the ban altogether and no longer screen people for risks of blood-borne pathogens like HIV or hepatitis C. It's just not going to happen. And this is more important, there is no reason that it should, and I don't think we should be in favor of that. We would not want them to do that. What we do want them to do is base the policy on the current science and the most up-to-date testing technologies. So briefly, I want to talk about two pieces of this that I think are important. First is what is called the waiting period. Sometimes people call it the look-back period or the deferral period, or whatever you want to call it, and what it should be changed to. And currently, the proposals that are before the FDA involve a change to a 1-year deferral period or a 5-year deferral period. I don't know about all of you, but a change in the policy that mandates a 5-year period of celibacy or a 1-year period of celibacy before a gay man can donate blood is not going to add very many of my friends to the donor pool. And for that reason, I think we need to push the FDA to really create the shortest window period that is justified by the way that we currently test the blood supply. Thankfully, there is no reason that we need to enforce a deferral period that looks to 5 years ago or a year ago or even 6 months ago. Current testing technologies, as Rich said before, can detect that a person is HIV positive within 11 to 14 days. Now that period is a little bit longer for some of the other bloodborne pathogens like hepatitis C or hepatitis B, but it only goes up to 25 days at most. So for that reason, and because all of the blood is tested, Lambda Legal is recommending that something along the lines of a 1 to 2 month look-back period be used to assess whether a potential donor has engaged in activities that may have placed them at a heightened risk of acquiring a bloodborne pathogen like HIV. Second, and this next part is key, let's honestly evaluate what activities put a person at a significant risk of HIV infection and ask everyone the same questions. As Rich also said, being gay doesn't put a person at risk of HIV. Having sex without a condom puts a person at a heightened risk of HIV. And someone needs to explain to me why a gay man who only has safer sex is never allowed to donate blood, while a straight guy who had hookup sex without a condom with a girl he met in a bar the night before can walk into a blood donation center and donate blood. That does not make sense, and that is what we should be concerned about. That is what we need to get rid of. That would be changing that policy so that we're asking questions about sexual activity would actually be protective of the blood supply. An activity that places a person at a heightened risk is an activity that places a person at a heightened risk, period. It doesn't matter with whom you are engaging in that activity, and it doesn't matter it doesn't matter with whom you're engaging in that activity. And we know which activities present a significantly heightened risk, which activities present a slightly heightened risk, and which activities present almost no risk at all. So all the FDA really needs to do is decide where on that continuum is safe enough, and set it at that point and ask everyone all of the same questions. So that is our ask of the FDA Advisory Committee on Blood Safety and Availability. Shorten the window period as much as possible, given the sensitivity of the current testing technologies, and ask everyone the same questions. Will asking some questions like that make some blood donators uncomfortable and perhaps even discourage them from donating? Maybe. But to that I say, too bad. And I ask, so what? So you lose a few donors who are squeamish about revealing the details of their sex life. They have been asking these questions of gay men for decades, and no one seemed overly concerned with that. So let's ask the questions that we need to ask. If we just do it, it will become a part of the blood donation process. People will accept it over time, and we will have a policy that is truly protective of the blood supply and non-discriminatory. If the FDA is serious about protecting the blood supply, that is what it will do. It will not continue a policy that singles out one group for a different treatment based simply on who they are. It's time for our public health officials to practice what they preach and rely upon science, not unwarranted fears and misconceptions to dictate public policy. That is what we need. That is what you are all out here to support today. Thank you very much for being here. And that is what we must demand from our government. Thank you.
Can we get another round of applause for our speakers today? Thank you all for being here. So we have a little bit more to offer you today. Founded in 1997, Vox Femina Los Angeles has quickly established itself as one of the premier women's choruses in the United States. It is a chorus committed to commissioning new works and raising awareness about issues that affect its members as a family of women. Through music, it aims to create a world that affirms the worth and dignity of every person. So please welcome Vox Femina's singing quartet, the Voxettes.
Thank you. While we get set up here, we just want to say we're proud to represent Vox Femina here at the blood drive. And those of us who are heavy enough to donate blood will be. No. Look at her. She's gorgeous. Me? Look at me. Come on. Are proud also to donate on behalf of some of our GMCLA brothers. So. Rock on.
Heaven knows I was just a young boy, didn't know what I wanted to be. Didn't know what I wanted to be. I was every little hungry schoolgirl's pride and joy, and I guess that was enough for me. Said I guess it was enough for me. To win the race, a prettier face, brand new clothes, and a big fat place on your rock and roll TV. But today the way they play the game is not the same, no way. Think I'm gonna get myself happy. All we have to do now is take these lies and make them true somehow. All we have to see is that I don't belong to you and you don't belong to me. Yeah, yeah. Freedom, freedom, freedom. You gotta give for what you take. Freedom, freedom, freedom. You gotta give for what you take. Give for what, give for what, give for what. I've never seen a diamond in the flesh. I cut my teeth on wedding rings in the movie, and I'm not proud of my address. In a torn-up town, no postcode envy. But every song is like gold teeth, gray goose tripping in the bathroom, bloodstains, ball gowns, trash in the hotel room. We don't care. We're driving Cadillacs in our dreams, and everybody's like Cristal, Maybach, diamonds on your timepiece, jet planes, islands, tigers on a gold leash. We don't care.
We're not caught in your love affair.
And we'll never be royals. It don't run in our blood. That kind of luck's just ain't for us. We crave a different kind of buzz. Let me be your ruler. You can call me Queen Bee, and baby I'll rule.
I'll rule.
Let me live that fantasy. My friends and I, we've cracked the code. We count our dollars on the train to the party, and everyone who knows us knows that we're fine with this. We didn't come from money, but every song is like gold teeth, gray goose tripping in the bathroom, bloodstains, ball gowns, trash in the hotel room. We don't care. We're driving Cadillacs in our dreams, and everybody's like Crystal, Maybach, diamonds on your timepiece, jet planes, islands, tigers on a gold leash. We don't care.
We're not caught in your love affair.
And we'll never be royals. It don't run in our blood. That kind of luck's just ain't for us. We crave a different kind of buzz. Let me be your freedom. You can call me Queen Bee, and baby I'll rule.
I'll rule.
You gotta
Give for what you
and
take.
we'll never be royals. It don't run in our blood. That kind of luck's just ain't for us. We crave a different kind of buzz. Let me be your freedom. You can call me Queen Bee, and baby I'll rule.
I'll rule.
I'll rule.
I'll rule.
All we have to do now is take these lives and
Make them true.
somehow. All we have to see is that I don't belong to you, and you don't belong. Freedom, freedom, it don't run in our freedom. You gotta give for what you take. Give for what, give for what, give for what. Let me live that fantasy. Freedom. I'm trying to tell you something about my life. Maybe give me insight between black and white.
As I kissed the girl, but darkness has a hunger that's insatiable,
And lightness has a call that's hard to hear. I wrap my fear around me like a blanket. I sail my ship of safety till I sank it. I'm crawling on your shore. I went to the doctor, I went to the mountain. I looked to the children, I drank from the fountain. There's more than one answer to these questions, pointing me in a crooked line. Nevertheless, I seek my source for some definitive. Closer I am to find, yeah. Closer I am to find, yeah.
I kissed a girl.
For the first time, I kissed a girl. La, 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 la. kissed a girl, her lips were sweet. She was just like kissing me. La 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 la. I kissed a girl. La 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 la. Come to my window. All inside, wait by the light of the moon. Come to my window, I'll be home soon. I would dial your number just to listen to your breath, and I would stand inside my hell and hold the hand of death. You don't know how far I go, it's precious ain't. You don't know how much I'd give, how much I would take just to reach you, just to reach you. Yeah. Come to my window, crawl inside, wait by the light of the moon. Come to my window, I'll be home soon. I went to the doctor, I went to the mountain, I looked to the children, I drank from the fountain. I went to the doctor, I went to the mountain, I looked to the children, I drank from the fountain. There's more than one answer to these questions, pointing me in a crooked line. And the less I see my soul, closer I am to find. Yeah, closer I am to find. Yeah. I don't care what they think. I don't care what they say. What do they know about this love anyway? I kissed a girl. Come to my window. I kissed a girl. Crawl inside. Weep by the light of the moon. Come to my window. Closer I am to find. Closer I am to find. Come to my window. Closer I am to find. Crawl inside. Weep by the light of the moon. Come to my window. I'll be home soon. I'll be home soon. I'll be home soon. Closer I am to find.
The Voxettes. So I just want to quickly say thank you to all of you for coming out today. That's kind of the end of the Speakers Forum part of today's events, but we do hope you'll stick around for the festival all day long. There'll be plenty of mulling around until about 4:30 today. Stop by the HRC booth to sign our petition. We have the Prop 8 plaintiffs here, Paul Katami and Jeff Cirillo, so you can say hello to them and talk about their amazing story. I know Scott Schoettes will be sticking around, so if you have questions about his position on the Presidential Advisory Council or other questions about what's going on with the Department of Health and Human Services or the FDA, he's your man. And if you're able, please go down to the auditorium and donate blood. So at noon, we'll have some more music from Kevin DeKemp. We just want to say thank you so much for coming out and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.